Welcome back to another My Team career mode video. This time we got the second round of season 1 in China on this Brawn GP My Team career mode. Let's not delay much further. Let's get right into the action to begin the Chinese Grand Prix race weekend in this Brawn GP recreation with Jenson Button and Victor Martins. Also, please let me know if the voiceover is better in this video or not, please. Thank you. Next up is the development. We can develop our second front wing adjuster bracket. All this should be done in time for next episode in Japan. Plank almost done. We can start developing the pistons, which will give us an upgrade for the powertrain. And we can now assign another upgrade. This time I'm going to put it on Martin's car. What? Just want to quickly check why they put. Yeah, that was the plank. This time I'll put it on Victor Martin's car. And now we can do some simulation, I believe, as we have nothing else to purchase. In the facility improvements, I did purchase the contractor management, which will be able to help us be able to do 2 facility improvements at the same time for the engineering, which will help us be able to get upgrades on the car even faster. Just going to go through the activity menus. We can only do a fan outreach, which will give us some more fan rating, which should be good for us. Look at all the other facility improvements. We're going to have a look through the corporate side of things. See what we can buy. Probably just get this one for now. 1.4 million audience improvement. And then we can go advancing for a bit.
Fantastic news. One of our parts is now developed. After completing a single part, it will be ready for fitting. We can select which car to install it on. Parts that have been dual developed will automatically be fitted to both cars. Head over to engineering and the assign upgrades screen so you can take a look.
Yeah, this is our first upgrade on the engineering side of things. That is now complete. Martin's has got that next part of the car. Gonna go to facility improvements again so we can see if we can purchase anything. But if you look at the top right, haven't got anything to purchase. Well, we haven't got enough money to purchase anything. So we're just going to simulate, and we are ready for the race weekend. Due to tyre wear, I am going to be selecting the harder tyre allocation, so we can get an extra set of the hard tyres. And on to the race weekend we go. Before we do that, we've got to choose who we're driving as. We did Victor Martin's last race, and I think we should do Jenson Button in this race. Let's get right into the action. We've got Jenson Button sit down in his office chair. Let's get right into the action for sprint qualifying. So for our first qualifying lap on the medium, we did a remnants lap just to make sure that everything was feeling okay. Through turn 1 we go now. And you see the delta shooting up to show that our first lap was not a proper push lap. Making our way out of turn 2 now towards the end of sector 1. Look on the top left to see where we are in comparison to the others. We are half a tenth down on Fernando Alonso. Flick the wheel right now. It's out of the hairpin on the traction. A little bit of a twitch midway applying the throttle towards the heart of sector 2 we go now. One of the most satisfying sections on the calendar in my personal opinion. Now stand on the power on the exit of the double left, and now towards the tricky left-right sequence. You need to get this right to be able, it's arguably one of the most important corners. If you get it wrong, you're going to be losing time down the whole straight. DRS about to be active later on down the straight, but now it's flat out down the back straight. We're not using overtake to make it as realistic as possible, because if you use overtake, you gain at least 0.8 of a second on a lap time. Towards turn 14 we go now, throwing the car in to the right hand hairpin, and now towards the final corner of the racetrack to see where we can put our car. Out of turn 15, out of the final corner, up and over the line we go. We go slowest overall of the drivers who have set laps so far in this sprint quality session. The way that sprint quality works, you only get one set of tyres for each sprint quality session. So in SQ1, we only have one set of medium tyres to use, and we're just chucking the wheel now, just trying to gain or find time wherever we can towards the final corner of the racetrack. It's only a marginal improvement, so this is going to be probably P22 on the grid out of the final corner. It's a 2/10 improvement over the line. It's still only P22 on the grid. It's quite the horrific qualifying going by Jenson Button standards in Formula 1.
That's it for sprint qualifying. Plenty more coming up over the rest of the weekend, so we'll see you all tomorrow.
The six that were eliminated from SQ1: Isaac Hadjar, Esteban Ocon, Fernando Alonso, Jack Doohan, Victor Martins and Jenson Button. We now await the start of the sprint race. Over to the commentator to announce the start.
Welcome to today's sprint. This is shaping up to be another fantastic weekend. We're here in the Yangtze River Delta today, home of the 16 corners that make up the Shanghai International Circuit. 54% of this 3.3-mile lap is taken at full throttle, and we'll be getting up to speeds of around 200 miles per hour with DRS assistance down the back straight before the cars break into the tight hairpin at turn 14. Off the back of a fantastic qualifying session, it's time to see how our starting grid looks for today's sprint. Max Verstappen put in a fantastic lap yesterday, and he'll start from pole position. And Lando Norris lines up alongside. Looking at the rest of today's grid, we have Leclerc, Tsunoda, Oscar Piastri, and Hamilton, Russell, Sainz, Antonelli, and Nico Hülkenberg, Gasly, Albon, Liam Lawson, and Bortoleto, Stroll, Behrman, Isaac Hadjar, and Esteban Ocon, Fernando Alonso, Doohan, Martins, and Jenson Button rounds off the grid. And with preparations almost complete, let's head trackside for today's sprint. And alongside me today, a man who I'm always pleased to see join me in the commentary box, Anthony Davidson. Well, they say that a change is as good as a rest, and whilst there's not much rest on show in the sprint format today, there's definitely a change to what we're usually seeing on the track. So we're getting close to the start of the race. What will this driver be experiencing? Big nerves? Big excitement? What?
Always extra nerves at the start of the race, Grumpy. It's probably at the start of the race, it's where your heart rate's at its highest in anticipation, and you've got to be in the right mindset. You've got to be thinking there inside the car, what can go right? How can I be opportunistic rather than what can go wrong, and how do I protect my position? Look forward and stay positive. It's easy to say, very hard to do when you're in that position.
Let's go to the Chinese sprint race.
Lap gets underway ahead of today's sprint. It's going to be interesting to see who gets pole position. As all the cars take their positions on the grid, the final preparations have been made, and all that's left is for the drivers to deliver on track.
We await the 5 red lights to tick on one by one in single file. 5 lights on. And it's lights out. And away we go. Decent start from Jack Doohan compared to Fernando Alonso. Wheel to wheel, those two go on the oldest driver against one of the least experienced drivers. We're going to dive around the outside of Martins, Alonso, Doohan, and maybe Esteban Ocon as well, as there's 3 wide in front of us between Lawson, Bortoleto and Hadjar. Bortoleto in a V-carb sandwich as we stand on the power now alongside Isaac Hadjar. We can't get as good as the next set as Hadjar. It's all after the lights. in Shanghai. The 5 lights go on, the 5 lights are out, it's foot to the floor, and we are racing in Shanghai. It's a very poor start from the championship leader. Lando Norris leads the sprint race. They're behind Russell, Tsunoda and Hulkenberg, 3 abreast. Through the first corner, Hulkenberg comes out ahead of Russell. Russell now dueling away with Oscar Piastri, whilst Hulkenberg is wheel to wheel with Yuki Tsunoda on the power now. Hulkenberg in the second phase, getting the better exit, and towards the end of Sector 1 we go. Lando leads from Leclerc, then Verstappen, Hamilton, Hulkenberg alongside Yuki Tsunoda. It's 2 by 2 by 2 by 2. Battles happening here, there and everywhere. Hulkenberg ahead of Tsunoda, and now Russell and Piastri going wheel to wheel into the heart of Sector 2, where Russell has to concede the place and is down into P8 whilst originally challenging for P5. Down the long back straight we go. It's got under pressure from Esteban Ocon. AI straight line speed really overpowered in this circuit. We're going to brake as late as we can. Maybe braking a bit too late. They're almost running into the back of Isaac Hadjar. And I feel the need to take evasive action. And we're off the track, drifting our way through. And because of this moment, we're down to P21 now alongside our teammate. And as you're going to see, this is going to practically ruin our sprint race. It's going to fall. The 2 Ferraris about to do battle. Hamilton tours out to the outside. DRS v DRS, Ferrari v Ferrari. Hamilton ran the outside of Charles Leclerc. Under braking at turn 14. Now on the power. Hamilton seeming to get the better exit now. And as we go to turn 15, the final corner of the racetrack, Hamilton pulls ahead of Charles Leclerc. But it's now roles reversed as Leclerc's now going to have the overspeed from the DRS. Leclerc now pulls out to the outside line. And Leclerc retakes P3 in this sprint race. Alex Albon maybe looking to try and hunt down his teammate. There's smoke pouring from the back of the Williams. Alexander Albon, his sprint's coming to an abrupt end. And then for the second time this season already, Williams have an engine failure. Last time out in Australia it was Carlos Sainz. This time in the sprint in China, it's Albon. Through turn number 2 we go with the top 2. Basically nose to tail there is Max Verstappen and Lando Norris. The Dutchman looking to re-overtake Lando Norris. And he's going to go around the outside. At the end of Sector 1 into Sector 2 we go now. Verstappen running outside. Lando trying to hold it on the inside. On the power though, Max Verstappen pulling ahead of Lando Norris. And the flying Dutchman flies into the lead of the Chinese sprint. And is set to fly off into the distance. So how's his pace been this season? Hulkenberg's defence has been mighty this sprint race so far. Go to the inside, Yuki Tsunoda looking for around the outside. Tsunoda around the outside, and Nico Hulkenberg now on the power. We've seen the outside line tends to be better for power. Now towards the final corner we go. On the inside goes Yuki Tsunoda. Yuki Tsunoda up into 5th place, and now George Russell looking around the outside of Oscar Piastri, as whoever gets ahead of this place could be next to challenge Hulkenberg. Russell on the outside is going to turn to the inside for turn 2. Russell through on Oscar Piastri on the power, and the Mercedes driver improves up into P7, can now hunt down Hulkenberg for P6 in this sprint race. Has to go defensive to the inside. Piastri trying now around the outside, and Piastri now on the power has got his nose alongside, but in the second phase George Russell pulls ahead and is up in the 6th place. Once again in Formula 1, round the final corner, Max Verstappen's going to take victory. Eat, sleep, win, repeat for the Dutchman. He wins the sprint. You can see what I mean by when I said that moment at the hairpin would have ruined our sprint race. Look how far off we are the back of the train. It's over 7 seconds behind Doohan. And as you can see, we're going to clip the curb here. And this basically just sums up our sprint race. Lights up the curb and it sends the car around. We're going to finish this sprint race in P21 as we round the final corner now. As Jenson Button, we finish P21 in the sprint race.
And that's the end of the race. We'll see you in Parc Fermé.
So that wraps up the sprint race, but there's still more action yet to come this weekend. We've got qualifying and, of course, the Grand Prix.
Verstappen wins ahead of Lando Norris, and then Hamilton takes the final spot on the sprint podium. Onto the Grand Prix qualifying, which is up next.
Welcome along to Shanghai, ladies and gentlemen, where it's Chinese Grand Prix weekend. But before we can race, we need to qualify. And who's going to take that coveted pole position? How will our grid line up? We're about to find out. Welcome to qualifying.
So we did a lap prior before. It was no lap worthy of being clipped, but as we're making our way down the back straight towards turn 14, see our delta almost 8/10 of a second up on the same set of tyres, if I must add as well, throwing the car into turn 14, flat out towards turn 15 in China. We're going to be aiming to be around a second up, and at the minute, this is tending to be looking a lot better compared to how SQ1 was looking. We crossed the line, we go P11, only 2.5 tenths from Carlos Sainz's best lap time, and when I'm comparing that to the sprint race in SQ1, I will definitely take P11 at the minute. Despite being P11 earlier in the session, we're down in P19, as it is basically now a all or nothing lap if we want to make it into Q2. So we've got to just throw this car and see what it can do. Touching the inside curve, it's going to unsettle the car for the mid-apex speed, and now to make our way through turn 1 and then turn 2, we've just found 1/10 of a second on traction now. Out of the corner, we are just over 1/10 of a second up as we're making our way toward the end of sector 1. We are just slower, 0.5 slower than Victor Martin's time. Our teammate is currently 0.5 up on us at this current moment in time. And towards the heart of Sector 2, the most satisfying section when getting it right, going a bit wider there, meaning our delta is not going to be as much as we'd initially want, considering how much older those tyres were. 2/10, just under 2/10 up, making our way towards the end of Sector 2. We are 2.5 tenths up on Oliver Behrman in P18, but we've got to hook it up. We've got to get it all nice and tight, but we have a bit of a correction mid-corner, and that costs us time initially on the exit, but we still gain 600ths on the exit. Delta being roughly around the same as it was as we entered Sector 3. Just asking for my best lap time. We've got a 35.3. We have to improve by at least 3 more tenths to be better. So we're just going to chuck this car into turn 14, and then towards turn 15 we're going to throw it in as well. We gain 1/10.5 through the hairpin. Towards the final corner we go, throwing the car in, seeing where we can go. Can we improve ahead of P21? Crossing the line now, it's only going to be P19 on the grid. It's an improvement, but it's not a massive improvement. But the car feeling better compared to how it did in sprint qualifying. Lewis Hamilton tops the session, Albon second, Gasly third, Lawson fourth. Quite an unusual second, third and fourth. The bottom 6 though, both Hasses, Esteban Ocon and Oliver Behrman. Then Jenson Button, P19, Isaac Hadjar, P20, Victor Martins, P21, and Hulkenberg, the hero of the sprint for Sauber, will be lining up dead last for Sunday's race. As we await the intro now for the Grand Prix, Jenson Button will be lining up P19, Victor Martins in P20. Where can Brawn GP, can we score our first points in the Chinese Grand Prix? Find out very soon.
It's time again then for Formula One in Shanghai. Northwest of the thriving city of over 24 million people is a circuit that first featured in the championship calendar back in 2004. It played host to Formula One's 1000th Grand Prix back in 2019. We start a lap here at Shanghai with the long, difficult right-handers of turns 1 and 2, the first of 16 corners that make up this 3.3-mile circuit. The incredibly long back straight provides the best passing opportunity of the lap, with speeds in excess of 200 miles per hour before we head into the braking zone of turn 14. Off the back of a fantastic qualifying session, it's time to see how our starting grid looks like for today's race. Lando Norris put in a fantastic lap yesterday, and he'll start from pole position. And Max Verstappen lines up alongside. As we continue through the rest of the grid today, we have Tsunoda, Leclerc, Oscar Piastri, and Hamilton, Russell, Sainz, Gasly, and Fernando Alonso, Antonelli, Lawson, Jack Doohan, and Stroll, Bortoletto, Ocon, Ollie Behrman, and Jenson Button, Hadjar, Martins, Hulkenberg, and Alex Albon picks up the last spot on the grid. That's it then, it's time to go racing as we head down trackside for today's race. And alongside me in the commentary box, my old friend, Anthony Davidson. And let's talk momentum with this driver. What a sprint it was. They start at 0 once again for today, but with a huge amount of confidence, surely. Well, they'll definitely be glad that there's not a sprint race today. Let's face it, the sprint couldn't have gone much worse, but what we're looking for today is a reaction. I know what we've got to do before the start of today's race, but what about our driver? What do the final hours look like for them?
Well, for them, you've got your pre-race rituals that you go through. You see different drivers that, some have got their headphones on, they're listening to the music. Some drivers really absorb the energy from the crowd and they're there waving to them. Other drivers, they go within themselves. They chat to their engineers, absorbing that information, that vital information that you need to carry you through the race. And, those pre-race rituals are essential to making things systematic. We do a lot of Grand Prix in a season, and the more systematic you can be, the easier you are within that environment.
The formation lap gets underway and every driver will be looking to settle in for the race ahead, making sure that their car is ready for the battle once the lights go out. So as all the cars take their positions on the grid, the teams will be hoping their strategies pay off for them in today's race. The question I'm asking is which teams have got it right, and which ones have got it horribly wrong?
And it's lights out, and away we go. And unlike the sprint, we get a very decent getaway, and we're instantly going to go to the outside line because we know we can swing our car around the outside, and that is exactly what we're doing. We're going to give up some entry speed to focus on our mid-cornering speed around the outside of our teammate Behrman Bortoletto, alongside Lance Stroll now as well. We're also past Esteban Ocon. First start. West, the worst exit compared to Liam Lawson, but now on the inside of Stroll, Lawson and Jack Doohan on the inside of 3 cars. We're up into P12 after starting P18. It's been a phenomenal start for Jenson Button. It's a start of a champion, and we're now going to be hunting down the points positions thanks to this great start. We'll wait the 5 red lights to tick on one by one, all lighted the lights, and 5 lights on, 5 lights out, foot to the floor, and we were racing in Shanghai. Lando Norris, just like the sprint yesterday, has the lead in the turn number 1. Max Verstappen and Charles Leclerc, not wheel to wheel, but George Russell on the inside of Yuki Tsunoda. These two dueling away once again as they was throughout the sprint race yesterday in China. We're making our way now on the power on the exit of turn number 2. George Russell has the inside line as we're making our way down towards the first hairpin of the racetrack at the end to the first corner of sector 2. Russell on the inside, but Tsunoda on the outside. Can he get a better traction as he will have more grippy racing line? But George Russell gets ahead and pushes Mercedes up into the top 5. Here we go then towards the end of sector 1. Another break in here. We rear lock and then get pushed out of the way by Jack Doohan after correcting our car. Nothing Jack Doohan or myself could have done, and that may have just cost us DRS to Fernando Alonso, as this even Esteban Ocon now powering on the inside. We've lost 2 places within the space of 2 corners here. We've gone from 12th down to P14 through to all fault of our own for having that rear lock, and we're going to change our brake bias to 55 to hopefully stop the issue. You can see Carlos Sainz and Jack Doohan wheel to wheel. Sainz on those dying soft. We're going to go defensive for Lance Stroll, but then also go on the inside of Jack Doohan, which was the plan all along, to dive on the inside. So then now we're ahead of Jack Doohan through 14. Now into turn 15, we can get a better exit on Carlos Sainz, and then now we can turn our battery on, DRS on, back in the hot lap towards the outside line, and we can pull ahead of the Spaniard and begin to gap Carlos Sainz, as he will now have those worn soft tyres as well as the dirty air affecting his pace. We should be able to get on with our race now and start gapping Jack Doohan as well as Carlos Sainz and Lance Stroll, so we can pull as much as possible as we are fighting against Lance Stroll. defending now on the inside against last row. We go a little bit deep, but luckily we get a better exit, which means we can now come into the pit lane because my tyres are knackered. My front left was, I believe, almost at 80% as we enter the pit lane. We're also trying to cover off Ollie Behrman, who is also pitted, maybe on the 2-stop, I'm not too sure, as we're making our way down the pit lane. Our goal is hopefully to come out ahead of our teammate as we now enter our box, pressing the turn-in button, praying for a good stop. The medium tyres go off. And now the hard tyres go on to a good stop from the Brawn GP team. And now on pit exit, Victor Martins, our teammate, down the pit straight. We're going to be clear of them. It's been a good pit stop from the team. It's a good pit window to come in as well. We're ahead of our teammate and we've got clean air for a while now as we can now focus on marginally undercutting Lance Stroll for this far after the stint. To my surprise, when we round the final corner here, you can see in the pit lane Kimi Antonelli, who was miles up the road when we came in for our pit stop. You can see Antonelli coming out on pit exit now. We are right with the Mercedes of Antonelli here, so we could be in for some better points than I had originally anticipated at first, as we are going to be able to use Kimi Antonelli to help to drag us along and have some free lap time in this stint. We still got DRS from Kimi Antonelli, but we're looking behind us instead of in front of us. We would ideally want to defend this, but no big deal if we can't defend this, because there's still people yet to pit. As Alonso makes a late lunge down on the inside of turn 14 on the traction. Now, we actually get a slightly better exit, but in the second phase, Alonso can slightly start to come back, but we've got the inside, we got in front of the apex, we can take the race in line, but now, making our way down towards turn number 1, we are fully clear of Fernando Alonso, making our way through the sweeping turn 1, the long right hander we go now. We are ahead of Fernando Alonso for the time being, but those new mediums on the Aston Martin will surely mean that he will blast on by soon. On the power, on the exit of turn 2, look how close Fernando Alonso is. Wanting to go to the outside there just to wave him on by, but he goes around the outside, and just as we get into the braking of the first turn in sector 2, he is already in front and we're just going to wave him on by. Can now well and truly see as we round the final corner, more drivers in the pit lane. We were P13 when before the final corner. We are now going to be up to P9, so we are fighting for a place in the top 9. We are fighting for 2 points this afternoon in China. So after our misfortune in Melbourne down under in the second Grand Prix of the year, could we finally get some points after we was looking for maybe a top 8 finish with Martins in Australia? We are now looking for a top 9 with Button in China. Skipped on the couple laps as there was nothing happening. There was no wheel-to-wheel action, but now Ocon got ahead of us into turn 14. We're now coming back at him as we start the final lap of this race round the outside of turn number 1. We've got to be really careful. Look at that front left, 78%. On the tyre wear, as we now got the inside, we now have the inside for turn number 2 on the power, trying to push Ocon as wide as possible to try and minimise his exit speed, but Ocon on the fresher tyres has got so much more exit speed. We can now make a lunge down towards the inside. We're going down the inside of Esteban Ocon, trying to fight for these 2 points, as it is the last lap. Fight for what you can get, whilst also being careful with the tyre wear. This tyre could explode at any moment. Max Verstappen starting 2025 in domination style. Lando Norris started on pole position. You can see him in the background there, making his way through turn 14 now. But out of the final corner, once again in China, the Flying Dutchman flies to the flag, winning in China, slows down to wave to the team, waving the number 1 finger to indicate and say to the rest, I am number 1 in Formula 1. Catch me if you can. The Dutchman has taken another win in Formula 1, another trophy for the cabinet. Making our way down the back straight, we've got DRS from Ocon. P9 is gone. Our full focus is defending Alexander Albon to make sure we get this 1 point. Down the back straight we go. Albon's gaining. We're going to go defensive to the Aussie inside line. Albon cannot make a lunge on the inside. Turning towards the corner for turn 14, whilst being careful with the front left. Towards the final corner of the racetrack we go now, and Jenson Button, second Grand Prix back in Formula 1, takes a point for Brawn GP, and they get their first point on the return back in Formula 1. P10.
Right, race over. Take care of the car on the way in.
It's another victory and a champion's performance from Max Verstappen.
And that's 2 wins in a row now. It's the start of potentially something special, but they can't get ahead of themselves just yet. It's a long way to go.
It's time to bring out the bubbly and spray it around. It's our podium celebrations. And for those that have missed the Dutch national anthem, fear not. It's back again because Max Verstappen is back on the top step. Well, what an end to another fantastic weekend of racing. Thanks to everyone who joined us, and we'll see you for the next one.
Thank you all for watching this episode of the return of Brawn GP. You can see your race results here. You can see the top 3. George Russell got a podium for Mercedes. There's your overall point scorers. This race weekend, we get our first point. If you did enjoy watching this, please maybe consider liking and subscribing. I will see you all tomorrow, hopefully, for the next episode in the Japanese Grand Prix. I will see you all then. Ciao, adios. And see you in the next one.